You're living in one of the world's wealthiest countries, sitting on mountains of oil money, with free healthcare and education, and you still can't afford a home. Welcome to Norway in 2024, where the Nordic dream has become a financial nightmare. You know, when most people think of Norway, they imagine this perfect social democratic paradise, right? Mountains, fjords, universal healthcare, and everyone living comfortably in their cozy wooden houses. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. Norway is currently experiencing one of the most brutal housing crises in its modern history, and it's happening in a country that literally has more money per person than almost anywhere else on Earth. And here's the kicker, this isn't some accident of market forces. This is the shocking result of a deliberate historical betrayal that happened right under everyone's noses. We're talking about how Norway abandoned its own founding principles and created a system so broken that even their own citizens are being priced out of their homeland. The evidence-based case. Let me hit you with some numbers that will make your jaw drop. According to official Norwegian property data, housing prices jumped by 8.2% in just the first part of 2024 alone. That's not yearly growth, that's partial year growth that's already crushing people's dreams. But here's where it gets really wild. The OECD, the organization that tracks economic data for wealthy nations, has specifically called out Norway for housing affordability concerns, noting that tax advantages for buying homes actually inflate house prices and contribute to wealth inequality. Think about that for a second. The policies designed to help people buy homes are actually making it harder for people to buy homes. It's like giving everyone a ladder to climb a wall, but the ladder keeps making the wall taller. Now, here's the historical bombshell that changes everything. After World War II, Norway made a conscious decision to eliminate housing shortages by investing heavily in owner-occupied homes and cooperative housing. This was peak social democracy in action, the state stepping in to ensure everyone had a place to live. But then, and this is where the betrayal begins, in the 1980s, a major political shift led to social democratic ideology being replaced by a more liberalistic agenda based on free market economy and deregulation. Price regulation was abolished, subsidized loans were reduced to nothing, and municipalities stopped providing building sites. Do you see what happened here? Norway took a system that was working, a system that embodied their values of equality and collective responsibility, and they threw it away for market ideology. By 2005, Norwegian housing policy was characterized by traits typical of a liberal welfare regime: market economics, low public expenditure, and subsidies for small, targeted groups. Historical context. Here's the part that should make you angry. Norway was actually the first Nordic country to neoliberalize its social housing, with housing policy deregulation happening in the 1980s. They were the pioneers of dismantling their own success story. This isn't just about economics, this is about identity. Norway built its entire post-war reputation on being different, on proving that you could have capitalism with a human face. Housing was central to that vision. When they abandoned that vision, they didn't just change policy, they betrayed their own national promise. And the results? The OECD notes that Norway's pro-homeownership policies have created an underdeveloped rental market, meaning if you can't buy, you're basically screwed. There's no backup plan, no safety net in the one country that's supposed to be all about safety nets. The other side. Now, let's be fair here. The defenders of Norway's housing policies aren't completely wrong. Real estate experts point to positive wage growth and expected interest rate cuts as signs that the market might stabilize. They argue that Norway's high homeownership rate, one of the highest in the world, proves the system works for most people. They'll tell you that housing price increases are a global phenomenon, not just a Norwegian problem. And technically, they're right. The IMF shows that housing affordability has deteriorated globally, with the US seeing its affordability index plunge from 150 in 2021 to the mid-80s by 2024. But here's where this argument falls apart. Norway isn't supposed to be like everywhere else. That's literally the point of the Nordic model. When you have the highest oil wealth per capita in the world, when you have a sovereign wealth fund worth over $1 trillion, when you pride yourself on taking care of your citizens, you don't get to shrug and say, well, everyone else is struggling too. Finding deeper understanding. So what's really going on here? I think we're witnessing something much bigger than a housing crisis. We're seeing the slow-motion collapse of the Nordic model itself, starting with its most fundamental promise, that everyone deserves a decent place to live. Think about it this way, housing isn't just about having a roof over your head. It's about belonging, about having a stake in society, about being able to build a life. When young Norwegians can't afford to live in their own country, you're not just creating an economic problem, you're creating an existential crisis for the entire social contract. And here's the really insidious part: this crisis is creating its own justification. As housing becomes more expensive, people start to see homeownership as this exclusive privilege rather than a basic right. The very unaffordability makes people more desperate to get in on the action, which drives prices even higher. It's like watching a society forget its own values in real time. The generation that built Norway's egalitarian housing system is now watching their grandchildren get priced out by the policies they allowed to be implemented. The ripple effect. But this isn't just Norway's problem. It's a warning for all of us. If the Nordic model can't solve housing affordability, what hope do the rest of us have? Norway was supposed to be proof that you could have both prosperity and equality, that capitalism could be tamed by social democracy. When even the Norwegians are struggling to house their own people, it raises some uncomfortable questions about whether any of our current economic systems are actually designed to serve human needs or just to perpetuate wealth accumulation. Making it relatable. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're 25 years old, you've got a decent job, you're living in one of the richest countries in human history, and you're looking at apartment prices that would require you to save for decades just for a down payment. How would that make you feel about your future? About your country? About the promises your society made to you? This isn't abstract economic theory. This is about young people who are being told they might never experience what their parents took for granted. It's about families being split apart because they can't afford to live near each other. It's about talent leaving the country because they literally can't afford to stay. Connecting the dots. And here's what's really terrifying. Norway's housing nightmare is just the canary in the coal mine. If this can happen in Norway, with all their wealth and all their social programs, what's happening in countries with less resources and weaker safety nets? We're potentially looking at the first generation in modern history that will be systematically worse off than their parents. Not because of war or natural disaster, but because of policy choices. That's not just an economic crisis, that's a civilizational crisis. The deeper questions. So here's what I want you to think about. What does it mean when a society's success starts to undermine its own values? When the very prosperity that was supposed to benefit everyone becomes a tool for excluding people? Is this inevitable? Is it just the natural evolution of capitalism, or is this a choice that societies are making? And if it's a choice, what would it take to choose differently? Because here's the thing that keeps me up at night. If Norway, with all its advantages, can't figure out how to house its people affordably, what does that say about the rest of us? Are we all just on a slower version of the same trajectory? I'll leave you with this thought. Norway's housing crisis isn't just about Norway. It's about whether we're willing to accept that basic human needs should be subject to market speculation, or whether we think some things are too important to be left entirely to market forces. What do you think? Is Norway's housing nightmare inevitable, or is it a policy choice that could be reversed? And more importantly, what lessons should the rest of the world learn from watching the Nordic dream become a Nordic nightmare? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely curious about your thoughts on this one. Are we witnessing the end of an era or the beginning of a wake-up call? Thanks for sticking with me on this deep dive. If this got you thinking, hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep exploring the stories that reveal how the world really works, even when they're uncomfortable to confront.